last week out, we saw one of the best races in this championship from Oulton Park in the UK. We moved back to North America for the Skip Barber Formula 2000 cars, and this time we go to one of the premier road racing circuits, one of the most complex road racing circuits in North America. This is round number 10 of your Skip Barber iRacing Championship from VIR on the North Course. Join us in a few moments' time. Welcome back here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live as coverage gets started here from Virginia International Raceway. Randy Chenowth, Alvin, Nieves, and Hugo Louis, as always, bringing you the action today. And Alvin, VIR, one of the trickiest circuits in North America. It is in a lot of ways, even the normal layout, a bit like a miniature Nürburgring, nonetheless the Grand West circuit we have here. But today, we're not running on either of those. We're running on the North Circuit, which isn't commonly seen, but is pretty tricky in its own right.
It is a bit tricky, and then when you consider Randy, this track is really not used that much on the surface, so there is one portion of the track that's gonna be really interesting. As soon as we head up to turn 7, the uphill, that section of the track all the way to the roller coaster, that's pretty much like a new portion of the track that for all these drivers, it's could be really the first time for most of them, but nonetheless, it is part of the circuit today. It is, and it's gonna be really important for everybody to be able to navigate this course.
So anyone who's ever been on this race course here at VIR, if you've never run this layout, this is basically a half layout. So basically the first half or so of a lap, pretty much the same. You go through turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, the left hook, NASCAR bend, yada yada. Then you go into that first set of fast S's coming out of turns number 5 and 5A, and 6 and 6A through the snake. And then you get on the brakes. There is a secondary set of fast S's that everyone should know and love that are on this layout that leads to what is probably the most famous corner on this circuit at Oak Tree. You make a sharp 90-degree right-hander uphill, you cut through the middle of the track, and you rejoin at the end of the back straightaway just a little ways down that straight from where Bitch Corner is, which is where you would turn in on the Grand West layout. Then, like you said, you just go down into roller coaster, then into hog pen. Very difficult circuit here as we're watching on board the number 4 machine of Adam Rylance.
Yeah, it is, and it is really an interesting circuit here that we have it here today now with Adam Rylands going here into the left hook. Kind of bit of a tricky and really important to set up here, as you gotta get a good run here out of turn number 5 and 6. Now you're going through the snake, and pretty sure Randy had something to say about this turn, of course, but now you really go a full throttle here, and you really have to be on your toes, because usually you keep it all the way full throttle, but no, you have to brake right here and you go into the uphill. And this is the portion of North VIR, Randy, that is pretty much new to everybody here.
Anyone that's run the Grand West layout is going to be somewhat familiar with this segment of the racetrack. There is also an interior circuit here that basically I think has never gotten used. I think when we had those rough cars released, we had a couple time trial style series set up that was using them, but beyond that, not used at all. Now this is the tail end of the circuit. Very, very difficult here due to the camber, Alvin. You have that sharp left, well, not really sharp left-hander, a fast left-hander in this quick, basically almost double apex right-hander at the end of the lap. Very, very quick here as these guys, qualifying is done. Gridding, let's go down your starting grid for round number 10. So, as these guys get themselves onto the grid, Johnny Gundy, fantastic time of 1 minute 35.121 to snag pole position, but Felipe Bear not far off, only 0.03 of a second back for P number 2. Justin Tito and Adam Rylands make up row number 2, with Andrew Picario and Greg Seitz making up row 3. Gresham Wagner and Tuan Tron make up the 4th row, with Carl Dronke and Kane Halliburton on row number 5. L. Leroy Capage and Edwin Valerno make up row 6. Jeremiah Morton and Justin Smith make up row 7, with Brendan Baker being all alone on row number 8. 15 laps, 15 cars, very tight, twisty circuit with a very long front straightaway, Alvin. I think we're going to see the field get spread out today.
It will definitely get spread out, because if you look at this racetrack, Randy, there's really only one place that you can probably say that the draft is going to play a big factor, and it's pretty much from all the way 17 all the way to turn 1. Apart from that, it's really technical and very important for everybody to be on their toes, hit their apexes, make sure that they got everything set up right, because the slightest mistake here, Randy, and you definitely will be left behind.
That you will. So, waiting just a few more moments till the rest of the field gets themselves onto the starting grid. Majority of your field is there, so just a couple people we are waiting on. Looks like we have just about everybody, so those lights should be turning on at just about any point. By the sounds of things, lights are on, revs start to build, and the green flag waves, and we begin lap number 1 of 15 here from VIR. It's a good launch from your top 2. Most of your field opting to get themselves single file, first side by side, happening deep down in the field here in this order. These guys go running off into this tight corner number 1 here at Virginia International Raceway. This double apex hairpin, swing out wide, and then you got to clip this second part here on the right-hander. Very slick, trying to get back to the power. Then into corner number 3, NASCAR bend, very, very fast left-hander right here. And then into corner number 4, it'll be after the short shoot at the left hook. By looks at things, Alvin, very, very clean the first time through, and everyone really getting themselves single file very quickly.
Single file indeed, but it looks like Kane Halliburton is trying to look on a move on Carl Dronke, but Carl Dronke able to get a good exit here now, going into the snake and going into turn number 7. We're starting to see a little bit of separation in terms of packs, but Randy going back into the front of the field, and this pretty much has been the MO of the whole season. Johnny Gundy and Felipe Bear leading this race.
So as the entire field works themselves through the infield section of VIR for the first time here, Johnny Gundy manages to stretch a little bit of a lead over Felipe Bear on this opening lap. Not much, but they now come down into roller coaster, corners number 14 and 14A, 15 that left-hander, then into hog pen, 16 and 17, very tight and awkward section of the racetrack. Felipe Bear all over the place with the oversteer, big tank slapper does a good job to hang on to it, and that, Alvin, at this final corner is really the one thing you have to work out for. Very easy to get any car at this racetrack sideways, but as you come down now, this long front straightaway, as technical as this place is, the one good passing opportunity is going to be going into corner number 1. Felipe Bear not quite close enough.
Not quite close enough, and Randy, you speak about Felipe Bear getting that tank slapper. If there is one corner that you don't want to get that, it's coming out of turn 17. Why? Well, that one is the one that leads to the longest straight, and you want to get the best exit out of it. But also, Randy, you know that that corner, getting it wrong, it's also easy because you are trying all the best you can to go full throttle, but also the track tries to spit you out, and you also get that compression just at the end, and it's really hard to keep that car under control.
Yeah, the final corner, it's everything changes while you try to keep that foot flat to the floor. The camber of the corner changes how steep you're going down the hill, and then like you said, you get that big compression moment at the bottom, which can load the car up, and then once it comes up and off the shocks, it can really upset that car through infield section for the second time. Tight, that's the section. We got an issue down in the back. There's actually a pit lane in the middle of this road course that actually this person I think hit is Carl Dronke in the 12, and this was after it's just a mistake on his own. Alvin, he's just coming up the hill from corner number 7 on exit, clipped the grass, got a big tank slapper, and he T-boned that pit lane wall that is used for the infield circuit at this racetrack.
Yeah, he was. It was on a battle with Kane Halliburton. I said at the drop of the green flag that Kane Halliburton was looking really racy to try to get that position of Carl Dronke. It looks like Carl Dronke, like you said, a mistake on his own, just clipped the grass and trying to save the car into the wall.
So that's going to be the end of his day because that was a big hit. Your leaders, though, worked themselves into the first corner now for the 3rd time. And again, everyone's going to be relatively patient. But we have a pretty big leading pack here right now, Alvin. We're not seeing that big 2, 3, 4 car breakaway we're used to seeing. We have about 6 or so cars all on a line. Right now it goes Johnny Gundy, Philippe Lebert, Justin Tipton, Adam Rylance, Andrew Vicario, Greg Seitz, Gresham Wagner, and Tuan Tron. Those 8 drivers pretty much make up that lead pack, but just a little bit further back, there's drivers, not really able to get a big gap. Halliburton, Coppage, Morton, and Smith, all very close as well. Basically an 8-9 car field, all fighting for this race lead as they work themselves into corner number 7 for the 3rd time.
And this is pretty much a result of not having that big of a slipstream that as we have seen on tracks on the previous season. So this is pretty much all about skill, and these drivers, I gotta say, all of them have the skills and definitely what they need to win a race here in the Skip Barber Series.
So the drivers have the skills, and this track certainly has the thrills as these guys work themselves now down the roller coaster and into hog pen for the 2nd time. Let's see if Lebert or anyone gets a big tank slapper as they go up and over that hill and then down and then loads the car up right at the bottom. And it's that little last even right-hand kink, Alvin, as you come onto the front straightaway that even overcomplicates things. You might think that the hard part is that first right-hander is a little bit tighter, but trying to get that car turned in for that right-hand kink is honestly, I think, what makes that final section so difficult.
And it is, and then you also consider on these cars, that it's all about momentum, and you're trying to keep that car on the track, and that turn, it kind of seems like it goes forever, and then you are concentrated turning, and then all of a sudden you got all that up, all that downhill, then you get that compression, and you gotta factor that into this, and that really tends to complicate things just a little bit.
So slight issue for the 3 of Johnny Gundy, race leader here going into NASCAR Bend. He just clipped the grass on the right-hand side. That upset the car. Didn't lose any spots, but Philippe Lebert, I think, could have maybe had a look going into corner number 5. Didn't quite do it, though, as these guys still going to be single file up here at corner number 7 and up at the top of that hill. I need to watch for that grass. That's where we saw Carl Dronke have his issue just a couple of laps ago. Through this S's section, going to be pretty much single file through here 100% of the time. And then now into the final set of corners again. Again, you rejoin at the very end of the back straightaway, down and back into the roller coaster section. And again, another single file section of the racetrack. Very difficult to try to make moves. But Johnny Gundy here, Alvin, he's done a good job to stretch the gap on Philippe Lebert as the 3 gets a little loose down at the bottom of hog pen, but not bad.
Yeah, definitely Johnny Gundy, he is doing what he needs to do right now, pretty much. Yes, it may look like sometimes he is driving on the edge, but Randy, also we have to consider that these cars sometimes you have to push the car just a little bit to kind of make it rotate, and it kind of seems that Johnny Gundy, that is pretty much what he is doing today. The track conditions today, they are pretty grippy, so sometimes while that is what most drivers are looking for, sometimes for some drivers they kind of like the car to rotate just a little bit more, and like Johnny Gundy is doing right now, he seems like he's trying to force just a little bit of that car to make sure that he can make those turns.
Yeah, like you said, it is very what would generally be called grippy weather here today. Overcast, 84 degrees Fahrenheit with a track temp of 86. So because of that, track's gonna be very cool. Lap times are gonna be probably some of the quickest we see all week. However, I think some people, like you said, I think Gundy's one of them, maybe not having the car dialed in for this cool weather because the tire's not quite up to temperature yet, and you're already a third of the way through this race. That's why you're seeing some of these people struggle with the oversteer moments. And again, other thing you have to think about, the camber is always changing here, Alvin, especially through that S's section. From turn 7 to when you get to this final sector of the racetrack, not only is it an S's, it's an S's section in the sense almost like you might get at Suzuka, but it's even more difficult in the sense that you're actually going up and down hills. It's almost like one of the test circuits that you had in the license test at Gran Turismo, where you're having to go up and down hills, and it's just infuriating. If you've been watching Jimmy Broadbent's stream, you might know what that's like for some people to endure. But because of that, it's always trying to upset the car because you're constantly taking weight off the car and then slamming it back down at the bottom of one of those hills. As we're getting our first side-by-side moment in a while, Greg Seitz trying to make a move on Andrew Picario on the run down into corner number 1, not able to make that stick.
Yeah, and you know, something else that you also have to think, this track in itself, the way it's designed, you know, you have most of the modern tracks nowadays, and they are designed in a way that you want to make it as smooth as possible, and you know, as an engineer, you gonna design it to where, okay, I'm gonna take this amount of dirt and I'm gonna place it here. This track, not so much. This track pretty much is what you call a natural racetrack. So pretty much the track follows the contours of the area itself, and that's where you get most of the areas where pretty much it kind of flows like up and down, and sometimes it throws you into a compromise that you really have to think, especially on some of the corners that may end up being off camera.
So at the end of this infield section, once again into this final handful of corners down this right-hander, quick little left-hand kink that you always need to be careful of. That little curve on the left-hand side and the right-hand side can really get the car loose, and then into the final set of corners, your leaders come once again, and Johnny Gundy's done a good job to stretch this gap over Felipe Bear, Alvin. It's not a huge gap by any stretch of the imagination, only about 0.4 of a second, but it's enough to where I think he's going to have just about broken the draft over that 2 machine, and because of that, it's actually now opened up to about half a second. He can pretty much safely, you know, unless he makes a mistake, he can always feel confident going into corner number 1 that that 2 machine will never get the run he needs to try to make a move.
And I think you are right there, Randy. For Felipe Lever, yeah, it kind of looks like he is pretty comfortable trying to run here in second place. Perhaps he's waiting just a little bit later in the race to try to mount an attack. And you know, we're talking about this big pack. You know, as we began the race, it was an 8-car pack. Well, Tuan Tran just lost this pack, so now it's pretty much down to 7, and perhaps he may even for a 4-car breakaway, because Andrew Procario, Greg Seitz, and Gresham Wagner, they're starting to lose contact with the leading pack.
Losing contact with the leaders, indeed. Your top 4, as we're used to seeing, tend to stretch out this fight, but these guys, Alvin, have been pretty calm. I'm not really surprised that we're seeing that people start to lose the leaders, especially in that part of this pack. As Greg and Picario attempt to go side by side in corner number 1 earlier. I think that's where the bulk of that time losses come from. But I think importantly, they're still within distance, Alvin, where they could potentially pounce, trying to make a move on those people in the top 4, especially if those 4 start fighting hard for positions.
If they start fighting, of course, they can definitely catch up. But you know, from what we have seen on previous races, usually the leading pack, we have seen that they race smart. You know, yes, sometimes you may see them fight for position, but that is more of a result of the slipstream most of the time. So on this track, I don't think that's really going to happen. I think the top 4 are pretty much happy where they are right now. Johnny Gundy right now leading just another lap in this race. So for P2, 3, and 4, right now it's just a matter of trying to keep pace with Johnny Gundy inside and see if, with perhaps 3 laps to go, perhaps if they can mount an attack.
Fight for P number 5 is heating up. Greg Seitz just took that position going in to that first corner. Gresham Wagner was able to close that distance on Andrew Picario, who just lost that 5th spot. So the number 1 machine now is Seitz, already stretching that gap over Picario. So we might see that 1 machine, Alvin, potentially reeling that gap out in front, but it has stretched because of that fight they had going into corner number 1, and now they come up the hill at corner number 7. Gresham Wagner all over the back of the 11. I have to say, Picario just lost 1 spot and dropped back to 6th. I think he's going to be losing another one and going back to 7th. And these guys go into corner number 1, a little bit further down the road, Twan Tron and Kane Halliburton, they're scrapping back and forth for P number 8 and 9 out there on the racetrack. Here's the leaders now for lap number 8, getting ready to come to the end of lap number 8 onto your long front straightaway. Johnny Gundy, seems to me, Alvin, last handful of laps, the grip in that car and the stability of that car has really improved. We saw the opening 3 or 4 laps, that car get some big tank slappers in some moments. I haven't seen that out of that 3 yet. I think those tires are up to prime operating temperature.
Absolutely, and you know, usually on other tracks we see that it takes us a little bit of the battle for P5 here with Greg Seitz and P number 6 with Andrew Picario, and going side by side into turn number 1, but Greg Seitz is really not letting it by, and Andrew Picario trying to keep just pace with him, but also opens the door just a little bit for Gresham Warner and closes the door. So these three really battling for P number 5, but the more they fight, the more the top 4 are gonna leave them behind.
These guys might be giving up hope to a certain extent of being able to catch that top 4. The way they're starting to fight amongst another, they're now going to go through the snake section of the racetrack here. This really only the only section of the racetrack that's normal in terms of the fast S's. We don't get the standard S's that you have here, but really tricky as these as the circuit is to this infield section. Pretty much does the track justice, in my opinion, as these guys go up the hill, corner number 7, and again, expect people to be single file. And that's one of the things about this racetrack, Alvin. Very difficult to try to make moves here. You can potentially, if you get a big run, sling a move at the very end of this set of corners going down into Hogpen. You have just enough of the straightaway that if the car ahead of you messes up, you could maybe slot yourself into the right hand side of the track and make a move there at the top of the hill. But a very narrow section of the racetrack would be very difficult to do and get right.
Difficult, but not impossible, Randy. And you know, not coming back to complete just another lap. This is pretty much perhaps the best overtaking opportunity that everybody has in here going into turn number 1. But also, if you get a good run coming out of the snake, perhaps you can get also a good overtaking opportunity going into the uphill. And like you also mentioned, if going through those S's, you can get a good run going into the roller coaster, perhaps that is also a good overtaking opportunity. Not very common, but you need to get a good run first.
Having a look up and down the field, and really there's no other fights to speak of outside of these top 9. You have the top 4, of course, who have been basically nose to tail since the drop of the green flags. We're currently working lap number 10. Then you have 5th, 6th, and 7th all in a line very close. And then you have Kane Halliburton and Twan Tron. Outside of that, things are pretty spread out. Justin Smith and Morton are somewhat close out there on the racetrack, but everyone else pretty much, I think, just fighting to survive here at this racetrack. Alvin, some people not taking to a racetrack like this very well. Very tricky for a handful of people to survive at a track like this, what with the way the camber is and everything, and really can't really blame them. It is probably the most technical circuit on the calendar this season.
It could be perhaps, but we also have to remember the last 2 tracks that we are going, Oran Park and Bathurst. And if we want to talk about technical, I'm pretty sure the next 2 tracks will be as technical as the track that we are right now. But you know, that's for the next week. Let's focus on this track right now. And you know, so far the action, you know, there haven't been that many overtakes, but that also kind of shows you the patience that these drivers are having in here today, you know. And it's really interesting when we compare this to the other races that we have seen so far, where the tracks are more wide open. You tend to see more side-by-side action, but up in here, it's more about technique.
As you say that, Felipe Bear goes for the race lead in corner number 1 on the outside and wasn't able to make it stick. Johnny Gundy's going to retain the race lead for now, but that half a second gap he had a few laps ago is now erased as we're inside of 5 laps to go. Big tank slapper through NASCAR Bend for the 3 of Johnny Gundy, and immediately has to go defensive into corner number 5. Felipe Bear not able to get it done on the outside through 5A and then into 6 and 6A, and then you go down through the snake here on this primary part of the circuit. The 3 of Johnny Gundy has to be really busy now, because within these closing laps, Alvin, this is when the guys are going to be looking to make some big moves. Up into corner number 7, no one's close enough to have a look just yet. Now everyone's going to be single file until they come off that final corner. That 3 of Gundy has to be perfect off that final corner down this front straightaway.
Definitely perfect. And We saw just a bit of an example what happens when you don't get a good run out of the snake. Felipe Barber had a good look there, but Johnny Guindy had to defend with all he had, and he's also defending here, going into 14-8 and going into the hog pen. So now Johnny Guindy needs to get this corner absolutely perfect if he wants to keep this lead, because Felipe Barber is really cranking up the pressure now.
Felipe Barber applying pressure as they come off that final corner, and both of them got good runs. Third place runner of Justin Tipton wasn't great, so don't look for him to maybe make a fight here, but that might actually give us a two-car breakaway. LeBert works the slipstream into corner number 1. He's going to pull to the outside again. You can make the outside work if you're far enough alongside, but the 2 LeBert I don't think is, and the 3 Gundy's going to get clear. Philippe going to get himself back into running order here amongst this top 4, because of that side-by-side moment. That breakaway from 3rd and 4th place isn't quite there. Through NASCAR Bend once again as we're inside of 4 laps go, and then now into corner number 5 and 5A. 5 is this left-hander, and then 5A is this cut back through that section of the racetrack. 5 and 5A, Alvin, here. It's really sort of like an elongated chicane, really, because you have to take both together, but it's so elongated it doesn't feel like a chicane, even though that's really the way you have to think about it.
You do, and then if you think the run that you gotta get out of 5A, if you wanna make sure that you keep that position, it's so important that it's also very easy to go off track. You know, it's kind of similar to the hog pen. The only difference is that there is no compression, but you know, you have to keep your eyes right on the track, and you have to make sure that once you nail that apex, you gotta be on the throttle.
So they come through the final section of the racetrack. Again, your top 4 all very close, so I think would be a big surprise as we're going to be coming to 3 laps to go if no one makes a move on anybody as they come towards this corner number 1. And start finish line, we got a motor pot, 3rd place runner Justin Tipton. We've seen this a few times this season, and well, the past couple seasons, the 8, due to all the slipstreaming, has popped his motor. His race is done, but the fight for the lead is still heating up, and Felipe Barber is almost clear on the braking zone into corner number 1, and this might be the best opportunity he's had. Can he stay alongside, do the exit of corners number 1 and 2? No, he's sort of there. Yeah, the winglet just poked on the left-hand side. He's going to be on the inside, do this left-hand kink, but no, he's not able to make it work. He's a 4th place runner. Now he's going to lose his motor. That's 2 cars in the span of a few corners. Adam Rylands, he blows up. That's 2 cars, Alvin. 2 of your top 4 out of this race with 2.5 laps to go.
And you know, sometimes you're having patience. It does pay off, but in this case, you know, and this is something that we have seen throughout not only this season but also past season. Cars popping the engines if they stay too much on the slipstream. And I think for Felipe Barber, yeah, he may seem that he may not even have a remote chance to try to go for the overtake, but I think he's doing this more for the sake of trying to keep the engine healthy, because that was only 2 cars in the span of only 1 turn. So Felipe Barber also has to be really concerned of his engine health, and perhaps if he's not attacking, just get out of the slipstream.
Felipe Barber is certainly going to be something he has to worry about. I think the saving grace for him, Alvin, will be the fact that he's only been running with 1 car in front of him for the bulk of this race. Both of those 2 drivers that we saw pop, one was running 3rd, the other was running 4th, and really for them, they're going to be getting twice the amount of dirty air coming into the intake. Because of that, that's going to be what will impact the cooling on those motors. But still, a hugely dramatic moment for those 2 with 2 laps now remaining, working lap number 14 of 15. And Felipe Barber, Alvin, has given Johnny Guindy quite a big bit of space going into corner number 1. I think you're right. He wants to make sure he gets good points to get him just, you know, to get a good finish in this championship. But I think he's really worried about popping that motor and getting a DNF today.
I think that is pretty much the main concern that Felipe Barber has right now. And if we go to the point standings, Felipe Barber really has nothing to do, so he can really push for all he has right now. And if he pops the engine, it really doesn't matter, because he just won the championship for last season, so he already has that one-day Skip Barber Racing School guaranteed in his pocket. So for Johnny Guindy, the pressure is more on him to win this race. And yes, he is leading the standings right now, but you know, the more races you can win, the better it will be. And then when you also consider the drop weeks that you have to take into consideration for Johnny Guindy, this is pretty much the opportunity that he's looking for.
looking at last lap, 6/10 of a second was what Johnny Gundy stretched over Felipe Baird. I think it's going to be even more than that once we get to the end of this lap, because the gap P1 to P2 is just growing larger and larger every single corner. I think Felipe Baird is going into full-on conservation mode as they come off this final set of corners down the long front straightaway to begin one more 2 1/4 mile lap here at the VIR North Circuit. Cross the start-finish line in just a moment's time for Johnny Gundy. I know that front straight's long, but it gets longer and longer every time, I swear. White flag in the air, and this time by, it was going to be a 1:34.8 for Gundy and a 1:36 flat for Felipe Baird, so that gap's out to 1.8 seconds. Right now, Gundy has this race won, so long as he can keep it clean. The fight is on, though, for P3 and P4. This is Greg Seitz and Gresham Wagner, who've pretty much gone past what would be the optimal passing opportunity. Also a secondary fight, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Kane Halliburton, Tuan Tron, and Andrew Picario, they're fighting as well. The fight for 3rd and 4th gets somewhat spread out as they work themselves through corners number 4 and 5. Now, tight little right-hander, and then what could be a decent passing opportunity on the run into corner number 7. Greg Seitz gets a good exit, though, and Gresham Wagner doesn't, so there's not going to be a move there. Let's look down at this other battle. Andrew Picario is clear away from Tuan Tron. Kane Halliburton, though, is somewhat tight on the tail end of the number 5 of Tron. Could maybe have a look going into corner number 7, but no, nowhere near close enough. Now, up into the S is going to be single file no matter what happens, unless someone ends up facing the wrong way. And everyone coming now towards the end of the lap here, and Johnny Gundy is working himself now down through the roller coaster and into hog pen for what has been an absolutely masterful drive for that number 3 machine of Johnny Gundy. Off the final corner, another big tank slapper just to show off a little bit, and someone who over the past couple laps has stretched 2 seconds plus over Felipe Baird will come away with a comfortable victory here in round number 10 at VIR. This 3-car trio is coming now off the final corner, and will the slipstream be strong enough for Tuan Tron? I don't think it will. The 11 Picario has a big enough gap, so he's going to round out the final spot on your top 5, quickly followed by Tron and Halliburton. And a little bit deeper down the order, Jeremiah Morton and Justin Smith drag racing down your front straightaway, but Jeremiah, he's going to make it to start finish in time as well, and that pretty much will do it. We have a couple cars who need to still come across the stripe, but no one's really close enough. Alvin, drama on that last couple of laps with 2 drivers blowing up within the span of about 3 corners.
Blowing up, and you know they also were contender for the win, but you know, as I said that they were also contenders for the win, Randy, we cannot take away anything from what Johnny Gundy did today, because you know, from the drop of the green flag, he was pretty much heads out. Yeah, he had a little bit of challenges from Felipe Baird, but Johnny Gundy didn't get faced by any pressure, any challenge. He was able to keep his head down, and he got the win.
So with that, let's go down now your post-race results from this race here from VIR. So Johnny Gundy comes away with what is really, it's a 2.8 second win for him. That sort of doesn't tell the whole story. That would make it seem that he was slowly stretching a gap all race long, when really it was very tight until those 2 dropped off, and then basically Felipe Baird went full conservation mode and really gave that big lead to Johnny Gundy. Greg Seitz comes home in 3rd, with Gresham Wagner and Andrew Picario rounding out your top 5. Tuan Tron will finish 6th, Kane Halliburton 7th, Jeremiah Morton 8th, Justin Smith 9th, El Leroy Coppage 10th, Edwin Valario 11th, Justin Tipton 12th, Carl Dronke 13th, Adam Rylands 14th, and Brendan Baker 15th. Alvin, this race, it wasn't one of the most exciting. It was close all the way up through and through. Alton Park, like we said, you know, this one had some big shoes to fill, and I think it would have been unreasonable to expect them to fill it, but still very good race in its own right with a good chunk of action all the way throughout.
Well, if you think how different those 2 tracks were, you know, Alton Park and VIR, I was expecting a little bit more of what we saw today at Alton Park, but it was kind of the flip side that what we got in here today, you know. And for next week, going to Oran Park, Randy, what an awesome racer. You know, it's kind of like a figure 8, really in form of a bull ring. Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, but you know, Randy, it is a fantastic track here. Anytime we go in, it's pretty much like a mix of what we saw in here today with all the ups and downs, and then you kind of you kind of throw in those short straightaways, Randy. Very important for every driver next week. They have to be on their toes, and they have to make sure that once they go into that track, they have to be sure that once they go in, they are in for the ride.
Yeah, Oran Park is definitely, you could probably describe it as Australia's Lime Rock. Very, very tight, very, very short lap, and you know, it can get pretty intense at that racetrack. And then the final race of the championship will be at Bathurst. So we're finishing this championship off, which we started in Georgia at Road Atlanta. Going to be finishing it off the last 2 weeks in Australia. But until next week, that is going to do it for us here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. Be sure to join us this weekend. We got a big slew of racing on board. WC GPS comes back as Martin Kroenke tries to make it. I believe it'll be 9 in a row this weekend. And as well, we have the Road America 500 kilometers. That's going to be in your Nissan GTP car and the Audi 90 GTO. Two of the most unique cars on the iRacing surface. That'll be fun to watch them go around for approximately 3 hours from Road America. But from us here at RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live, from Randy Chenowth, Alvin Nieves, and Hugo Louis, this has been round number 10 of your iRacing Skip Barber Championship. See you next time.